You have exactly 3 seconds to like and subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, I'll appear in your dreams tonight. To ask for a donation for that cup of coffee, link below.
First, we need to know what nuclear weapons are. Nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction whose energy is generated by nuclear fission or fusion reactions. Nuclear weapons have a destructive power equivalent to 30,000 to 300,000 tons of explosive, capable of completely destroying an entire city. It was first used towards the end of World War II, when the United States Air Force dropped 2 atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, causing perimeter can also be understood as a nuclear weapon. It is connected to the Russian Strategic Nuclear Forces Alternative Communications Network, a secret and reliable system that cannot be neutralized. This is a fully automated complex designed to control a massive nuclear attack, comprising missile systems on warships and underground bunkers designed by the Soviet Union during the Cold War as a last resort defense against an aggressor. It was designed to ensure that, even if the command centers were destroyed by the first strike, the Soviet Union would still be able to retaliate and inflict the destruction of its opponent as well. To put it simply, you can understand that if Russian territory is devastated immediately after a nuclear attack, the perimeter system will almost instantly retaliate by attacking the enemy's territory with similar nuclear missiles. It is for this reason that the press and Western leaders have nicknamed it the dead hand. So what is so terrifying about this system? That it is associated with the word deadly. One of the first mysteries comes from its formation. During 1949, the height of the Cold War, fearing preemptive nuclear attack from the US, Soviet leaders requested the development of a new command system to ensure that retaliation could still be launched even if the command and control lines of the strategic missile forces were destroyed. At that time, the control and command of the country's strategic missile forces were still carried out through the nuclear briefcase. However, the drawback of this method was that it still required orders from the Supreme Commander. Therefore, on the decree with the code number Soviet Supreme Leader Ts-237 assigned the Dnepropetrovsk Design Bureau the task of designing the perimeter nuclear counterattack system. The design and construction of this system were kept completely secret, making it seem like something mysterious even to some Soviet leaders and Western intelligence officials at the time. Because of the secrecy surrounding its formation and development, its functionality and operation are virtually impossible to fully document. Soviet scientists employed data backup methods to ensure that control commands would reach all launch crews. Later, they conceived the idea of using ballistic missiles equipped with powerful radio transmitters, acting as a communication link to the nuclear weapons launch platforms. The UR-1 or UTK's NATO designation Spanker is the central component of this system. Instead of flying directly to the enemy target like previous strategic missile systems, Perimeter would deploy a ballistic missile equipped with a guidance system that would fly over Soviet, sending launch commands to all missiles stored in silos, aircraft, warships, and ground-based launchers. This missile would be housed in a newly constructed silo capable of withstanding a direct nuclear attack, pre-programmed with flight coordinates and radio signals that it would send to the missile during flight. According to military intelligence, in addition to guided missiles, Rs-20 S-18 SAID missiles or the R-36 series and its variants would be preferred choices and primarily deployed in silo. and the country's nuclear defense system. In the case when high-ranking Soviet leaders received information from the early warning system that another country had launched missiles at the Soviet Union, perimeter was activated in the then. If no order to cancel the alert was received within a certain time, the missiles would be launched. This would eliminate the human element and ensure nuclear retaliation even if the missile launch and control teams were completely destroyed. You're probably wondering what would happen if such a modern automated system carried out uncontrolled launches. Right, don't worry. To ensure no uncontrolled launches occur before launching, perimeter checks parameters sent to the command center. From 4 channels: information from radio communications, information about radiation fields and other radiation sources at control points, information from the early warning system about missile launches, and finally, this involves analyzing seismic data. The system's electronic brain, after synthesizing 4 channels of information, will draw conclusions about the situation of a large-scale nuclear attack. Because it is built on an advanced artificial intelligence and computer science platform, the question arises, can the deadly hand be vulnerable to cyber? Soviet experts confirmed that perimeter was robustly protected from natural disasters, common acts of sabotage, and had its risk and likelihood of cyber attacks minimized during its deployment and combat readiness. Across the vast territory of the Soviet Union, the perimeter system's command centers constantly monitored natural factors and simultaneously tracked data from missile warning systems and intercepted communications on enemy frequencies. After detecting signs of an attack, in the event of a nuclear attack, the system reports to the General Staff. If any warning signs appear, the system continues to check whether any communication systems are still connected to the General Staff. If the military's command center maintains communication, the perimeter system automatically disconnects. If the General Staff does not respond, perimeter sends a request to the commander of the Strategic Missile Forces, the Kazbek nuclear briefcase, in the hands of the Soviet General Secretary. If no response is received from Kazbek, the control system allows any commander in a nuclear missile silo to make a decision. Finally, if there is no response from these agencies, meaning the ground command centers have also been destroyed, the perimeter electronic brain decides to launch a retaliatory nuclear attack on its own, recognizing that the time has come to launch the strike destructive attack. The perimeter system would automatically launch guided ballistic missiles, which would directly signal surviving missile silos and other nuclear facilities to retaliate. At this stage, no human involvement was required. Development began in the and by the end of the decade, prototypes had undergone military testing. Initial tests showed the missile was capable of flying for 500 km at an altitude of 1,000 meters and successfully transmitting radio signals to other objects during its flight. For 5 years, the military command conducted combat tests to see if the new weapon was capable of deploying a real silos underground launch platform and delivering the country's most powerful nuclear missile to a designated point. By month in November 1984, the UR-100 UTK command missile carrying a signal warhead was launched from Polotsk and transmitted a launch command to it. RS-20 SS-18 Satan ballistic missile silo at Baikonur Cosmodrome in the Soviet Union was launched and successfully hit its target at the Kura range on the Kamchatka Peninsula. This new weapon truly demonstrated its ability to travel across the entire Soviet territory, while simultaneously sending combat commands to other intercontinental ballistic missiles. However, it wasn't until January 1985 that perimeter was officially commissioned into the Soviet Union Strategic Nuclear Deterrence Forces. 5 years later, the system was upgraded and modernized, receiving the codename Perimeter RC. But perhaps discussing only the mysteries surrounding its formation, function, and operation is insufficient. The exact location of the command bases of this system remains a difficult mystery to solve. It wasn't until 1992 that the US government and the West learned of the existence of a secret underground base in the Kosvinsky Mountains. deep within the Ural Mountains, east of Moscow. U.S. intelligence and military officials believed this was a site for the development and production of nuclear weapons, as well as the implementation of other military programs to avoid detection by Washington spy satellites. The Pentagon also believed the base operated as a command and control center for Russia's nuclear weapons. The ballistic missiles stored there were capable of operating autonomously or being remotely controlled, ready to retaliate in the event of a nuclear war. In 1997, the CIA released a report stating, in 1996, Russian President B. Yeltsin issued 3 decrees on the plan, an emergency response, with the supervision of underground construction to maintain leadership in a nuclear war. According to this report, satellite images of Mount Yamantau near the town of Beloretsk, also in the Ural Mountains, show the construction of very deep underground complex and construction work in 2 above ground support areas. The CIA identified an underground fortress once used by Russian leaders in Voronezh, a location 46 miles south of Moscow. Second underground fortress in Sharapovo, nearly 84 km, is equipped with a dedicated subway line that runs directly there. All of Russia's secret fortresses and special cities are under the control of the Federal Security Service (AFSB) and the Presidential Administration's Special Services. So not much information is available about these locations. Occasionally, information about this underground fortress system is leaked to the media, mainly from archives. This is a secret of the Soviet intelligence agency KGB. And as far as military experts know, over decades of existence and continuous improvement, supplementation, and development, the Dead Hand system now includes not only missiles, but also radars along Russian territory and satellites collecting information from space. This is a complex computer system that continuously analyzes a range of parameters: seismic activity, radiation level, as well as monitoring data from missile warning systems located along the territory. Large-scale modifications have also been carried out throughout its years of operation. First, Russia integrated new radio-electronic intelligence assets such as the Voronezh-class radar, of detecting missile launches up to 7. Later, engineers modified its warhead to counter new electronic warfare systems capable of disabling them. Radios, said Director of Development at the 21st Century Technology Promotion Fund. According to Russian sources, the Dead Hand is on the list of targets for hypersonic missiles, capable of traveling at speeds of 5-7 km/s. The new missiles will be put into service in the military alongside the new Sarmat-class ICBMs. Despite continuous improvements and development, and source of pride for the Soviet Union, in the summer of 1990, under pressure from the START I treaty, Russia was forced to end its combat readiness with the perimeter system. Unfortunately, the United States and its allies did not appreciate the goodwill gesture of the Russian leadership. The US and NATO continued their eastward expansion, admitting more Eastern European members and former Soviet states surrounding Russia, building more military bases and increasing the supply of heavy weapons to these countries aims to tighten the encirclement around Russia. Of course, Moscow will never stand idly by and let Washington chop and kill as it pleases. In December 11, the commander of the Russian Strategic Missile Forces, General Sergei Karakev, announced that the perimeter system had been put back into combat readiness. However, despite its extremely terrifying concept, it is not missile defense or space defense systems that has contributed to reducing the risk of nuclear war. It is an acceptable and fairly ethical solution to prevent nuclear war. The existence of this system made Western leaders seriously consider and hesitate before intending to launch a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union, because they understood that a nuclear attack on the Soviet Union would lead to heavy losses for both sides. That concludes our journey in unraveling the mysteries of the perimeter system. It can be said that, to date, the perimeter system still plays a crucial role in Russia's strategic defense perimeter to ensure its nuclear retaliation capabilities, especially in the context of escalating tensions with Ukraine and Western countries recently. It also embodies one of the finest examples of the Soviet-Russian military scientific and technological prowess. So, given its mysteries and terrifying power, do you think the perimeter, the Dead Hand, is perfect for countering a nuclear attack? And does it possess sufficient deterrent power to maintain stability for Russia against the US and Western countries? Please leave your comments below. Don't forget to like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated with the latest videos from KTQS. And now, on behalf of the team, Viet Quang would like to say hello and wish you all a new week full of energy.